morning, everyone. Good morning. You tired? I'm so glad to be here today. This week is like concert week, right? Blackpink yesterday and today, and if you didn't know, I actually went to a Keshi concert this Thursday because it was Emma's birthday. She wanted to go to the Keshi concert, so my wife and I we decided to chaperone them, and we went. And I listened to Keshi a lot in the car because Emma likes to listen to Keshi, and he's all right, So I was like, we'll go, and we'll make it a date night or whatever. And we went, and we bought extra tickets, and we literally sat like and I know Kaylin and Chris was there, right? I didn't get to see them, but Emma did. But we were like literally like in the highest seat in the corner of the entire place. We're facing the side of the stage. We didn't get to see any of the jumbotron or anything, and so we just sat there and we listened to the concert. But and I have to say, like, I was the coolest old guy there, though. Okay, because I was the only old guy there. I mean, I literally did not see another person like my age or younger. But I am now a Keshi fanboy, right? No, I really enjoyed the concert. I didn't think that I was, but I really did. More than I thought, okay? And I don't know if you think that's weird. Your pastor loves Keshi, but I actually really enjoyed it. And the reason was this. He's really good, first of all. In person, he's amazing. But what I loved about it was how emotionally raw he was. He was so relatable, right, Kaylin?
Yeah.
Yeah? Right? She's like gushing right now. Oh my gosh, you're so right. Yeah. I'm gushing too. Yeah. No, but what I loved about him was that his lyrics really are so real. It speaks about like brokenness. It speaks about like heartbreak, loneliness, struggle with identity, struggle with self-discovery and broken relationships. And like I could relate to that too. I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. No, like it was like really so relatable. And I really appreciated that he helped me to get there. Get to a point to kind of think about even like some of the things that I, struggled with in the past and even now. And I feel like we don't do that enough. I feel like what Keshi did, this kind of modern day poet, like his lyrics are really good. I really believe it, that he's good. And, it really speaks about the depravity of life, Like this world is not always fair. It's broken, and we go through stuff. And like poor guy, like I was kind of sad because everyone was like, take it off, take it. Even I was like, take it off, because I knew that in his concerts, like he takes off his shirt, right? So I wanted to see it, right? But did I say that? Okay, yeah, I said that, right? But he said, stop. Let me be real with you, okay? He said that he's going through a lot of stuff. And he lost a lot of weight. And when I saw it, I was like, who is this puny little Vietnamese dude, Like, I thought he was, like, more buff and whatever. He was so skinny. And he's like, look, I can't take off my shirt. I've been through some stuff. And he shared that. And he didn't. He didn't take it off. I was very sad. But I loved how real he was. And he really was. And I felt that. And he also helped me to, go there. And you know what? I don't think that's bad. I don't think that's bad at all. Sometimes as people who have gone to church our whole lives, we need more of this. Because a lot of times, I feel like in church, and pastors do this, and I'm guilty of it, and teachers do it. Sometimes, we tell people to like, just get over it. God is in your life, you go to church, And we give this message like, if you're a Christian, you should have no problems. What's wrong with you, right? And I think that's so wrong. And sometimes we need artists from outside the church. I'll say it. Yeah, we need, this from like Keshi or others to kind of remind us that, we live in a broken world of sin. We've been talking about that, right? But the thing is, we don't allow ourselves to go there. And we often go quickly to the hope without thinking about the reasons why we need the hope. Just because someone told us to believe and they say, oh, your life is going to be perfect now that you know Christ. That is not what the gospel is about. We talked about that, right? And the thing is, we want to, even me, I want to skip over the depravity of life. I want to skip over the brokenness. And we tell people everything is going to be fine if you believe. And that's not what the Bible says. And I'm going to explain. In fact, I often think it's a lie from the enemy when you think about it. Because where do you get that? The Bible doesn't describe that. Read the Bible. Read the Psalms in particular. Okay? Because David who wrote most of the Psalms, I really think David was Keshi 3,000 years ago. I really do. Read the Psalms. Okay? Because David talked a lot about heartbreak. David wrote a lot about brokenness. David wrote a lot about broken relationships. But he also in his Psalms, you have him talking about loneliness, struggling with identity, struggle for self-discovery. I'm telling you, I'm not saying crazy things here. And you know what? I actually prayed for Keshi at one moment, because the way he chose his songs, it really kind of, it was a climactic moment where his just brokenness just is on stage, and people can identify with that. And at that moment, I literally prayed for him. I know that sounds like a pastor thing to do. I really don't do that. If I was at the Blackpink concert, I don't know if I would do that. But pray that Jenny will wear more clothes. I don't know what I would pray. But I prayed in that moment. First of all, I thanked God for Keshi in that moment. I did. And I prayed that one day he can know God. And when you listen to his lyrics, he is searching for God. He is thirsty for God. And I pray that he finds him. Find the hope that he's looking for. But I love that he sits in the depravity of the world. And that's okay, guys. It's okay. It's okay to be real in this moment and say, God, I'm like that. I identify more with Keshi than I identify with Pastor Danny. And that's totally okay. But I want to tell you that, I also too have been broken. Right? And I'm going to share some stories with you, okay? So hang on, okay? But the whole idea is, what is so amazing about grace is what we're talking about today. And I want to tell you the reason, and that is that this grace pursues you, okay? Grace pursues you. And what I'm really saying is that we often think about this amazing grace as something that saves us from hell or, gives us, a ticket to heaven, right? But that's not what's amazing about grace. The amazing thing about grace is that this grace actually pursues you. And I told you, and many times, Christianity is not a religion. Religion is man trying to search for God, and figuring out why we're created and what's going on with the universe. Christianity is a religion where God reached out to us first, and we reach up to him and he holds us. And in order to have a relationship with him, that relationship, a pursuit, just like you would pursue a guy or a girl, it's a pursuit, because he wants to have a relationship with us. And I don't want you to forget that, okay? Because it's all over the Bible. You read this Bible, this Bible, it's not just a Bible that talks about a ticket to sin. I can summarize that for you in a few sentences. And we think that it's, this is about the sinner's prayer. So no, this talks about a God that pursues you to have a relationship with you. And I want you to see that today, okay? Let me share a story, okay? One of the most impactful experiences in my life was, after my freshman year of college, near the end, someone approached me in the library as I was studying, one of my friends, and he showed me a flyer, and he put it on right in front of me, and it was a flyer for a mission trip to the Ukraine. Okay, war-torn Ukraine, you hear in the news, right? But this was a long time ago. Okay, and it was a mission trip through the Campus Crusade for Christ to go there on a mission trip, and it was a really long trip. It was like 1 week of training and like 4 weeks in the Ukraine. And what was crazy about that opportunity was that, Ukraine was not always independent like it is now, and now they're fighting with Russia, right? But back then in 1992, before to 1992, it was part of the former USSR or Russia. Okay? And it was in 1992 that it became an independent nation like it is today. All right? And so this trip was an opportunity to go to this communist country that no one else was able to go, and this summer was the first time. And so it was awesome. I was like, oh, sign me up. And I signed up, and we went. And it was amazing. And I'm going to share several stories with you this summer about my Ukraine trip, right? But let me start with this one, okay? So I went to the Ukraine. I got to see Kiev, which is a beautiful, beautiful place. And the people are beautiful there, too. Very good-looking people, by the way. But also I got to see Moscow. I got to see the Kremlin. I got to see Lenin's tomb. It was awesome. But one of the most powerful experiences was going south in Ukraine to the southern part of it called back then it was called Nikolaev. Now it's called Mykolaiv. You might hear it in the news here and then, and I'll share why later. Okay, but we went to Nikolaev, and we traveled down all the way to the southern tip of Ukraine, and there's actually lots of Korean people in Ukraine, in communist Ukraine. They're not really Korean people. They're called Koryo people, whatever. Okay, and they were people during the early 1900s, right, or 1800s, I forget. But anyway, during the reign of Stalin in Russia. Okay, during the Japanese occupation of Korea, it was tough, right? And the Korean people from the south and north defected to China to escape. And when they got to China and Russia, is right over there, what happened was the Russian leader, Stalin, made all these Korean people, he's like, no, you can't live there. They made them migrate all the way to the other side of Russia, the former Soviet Union, okay? That's even further than California. It's like 1.5 times larger, farther than the US. It's a long way to walk, okay? But these people, these Korean people, had to migrate, Korean Chinese people, they had to migrate to the Ukraine, to Nikolaev. So these people have been living in this region for a long time, away from their mother country, and so it was very strange when we visited them. They looked like Korean or Chinese people, but everything that they did was kind of like what Korean people do, but it was like different. Like the food, like they had kimchi, but it was like weird kimchi. They had like noodles, but it was like very weird noodles. Like everything was drenched in fat because in Russia it's really cold in the winter. So they put everything was like fat. It was like I could not. We couldn't eat the food. It was very difficult. There was one time though. They fed us every meal, and it's rude not to eat their food. So we tried so hard to finish it. And I remember one time the food was actually good. I was like, whoa, this soup is actually good. There's soup with meat in it, right? And then I see all my teammates, mission teammates. They're all like, ugh. And I'm like, why? This is like the best food we've had so far, right? And like, yeah, I'll eat yours then, because we have to finish the food. They're all like, ooh. And then I was eating, I was like, finally, something I can eat. And I'm eating, and I'm like, wait a second here. Every time we ate, I remember there were dogs barking so loud that we couldn't even hear ourselves, but it was like really quiet. And then I was eating this, and I was like looking around, everyone was like, ooh. I was like, oh no. I ate 3 bowls of that dog that was screaming, okay? They only do that for very special guests, right? I wish they didn't, but yes, I've had 3 bowls of dog, okay? Yeah, it was a very strange place. And there's other stories, but I remember in particular, it's a farming community, and I remember this one ajashi, right? This older Korean guy, right? And they're all farmers, and I remember he was like a creeper, like he was so creepy. He was following all the girls in our mission team, and he kept on like looking at their faces like this. It was like really creepy, but and he explained why. He's like, oh, Korean from America? Wow, girls' eyes are so big. My eyes so small, but your eyes so big. It's because in America, they have big buildings, so their eye go up and down. But me, I wake up every day. I see farm every day. My eyes small. He said that. And in that moment, I realized, that that's kind of like us. When we see God like this, when we see God in this way, we forget that we have a God that sees the depths of our sin, the depths of depravity and brokenness that we have in our life, our heartache and brokenness, and we forget to see the heights of His amazing grace. You know what I mean? Especially when church, we're told, just get over it, And what happens is we become so short-sighted in our spiritual walk with God. You know what I mean? You see, I want us to realize today that God His grace is so much more amazing than just being saved or whatever, okay? God's grace is so amazing because He pursues you. He wants to have a relationship with you. Every day I have a relationship with God, okay? And I hope that you do too. And and it's this, okay? It's this idea. What does it mean? It means that, I asked you several questions throughout the series, right? We started off with, but a few weeks ago I asked you, can you trust the Bible? Last week, no, it wasn't last week, was it? It was, yeah. Can you trust Jesus alone? We talked about today. I want you to ask yourself this question. Do you know God? Okay? Do you know Him? Personal relationship. Not only that no, and do you not know that? Do you know that God knows you, rather? Okay? Not only that, but do you know that God sees you the way you are? He sees the way you are and knows you more than your friends do, your best friend does, or your parents do, or even the way you know yourself. God knows you. And also that He pursues you. He pursues you to have a relationship with you. Do you know God in this way is the question. Right? And I want you to see that. And in order to do that, I think we have to sometimes have a keshi moment kind of thing, where the depravity of life, the brokenness that this world, provides. And I would also say this, that God allows these times of suffering in your life. God allows brokenness. God allows you to see the depravity of sin. Why? Because He wants to know you. He wants you to reach out to Him back. Because He knows you better than anyone else. He sees you better than anyone else. And He pursues you more than anyone else. And the only way we realize it is when we realize our sin. And how broken we really are. Do you understand that? It's kind of like this. I learned this really early in my life. And I thank God for it. I went through a lot of painful things in my life, even from the very beginning. I came to the United States when I was 5 years old. We moved to Alexandria, Virginia. I only came to New York when I was 9 years old. And when I was in Virginia, it was really tough for me, okay? I came to this foreign country. I didn't know the language. I was 5 years old, so, I didn't know anybody. In Alexandria, Virginia, there was no Asians. Period. Okay? Period. There's no one. Everybody looked at me like I was like from a different planet. Like they've never seen Asians before. And so I didn't speak the language, so I couldn't make any friends. But you know what? Something wonderful happened. I discovered something right in front of our apartment. What was it? It was a 7-Eleven. It was a 7-Eleven. And at the 7-Eleven, they had something. Even back in 1979 or 80. Okay? You know what it was?
Slurpee.
Slurpee, yeah. Oh my gosh. Coming from Korea, this foreign country, I had Slurpee for the first time. I was, oh my gosh, right? And not only that, I love the Slurpee, but I got it like every day, right? But I realized, I didn't know how to speak to like other kids in the neighborhood because I could speak language. But I could bring them an extra Slurpee and go around Slurpee, Slurpee, and make friends that way, okay? And there was a problem. I had too much Slurpee. Okay, when I first came. So I gained weight really fast. I was so big. I was like bigger this way than I was this way. And I was like this tall and about the same weight as I am now. And the kids, even though they became my friends, because Slurpee, right? They had a nickname for me, and my kids know, my nickname, right? Yeah, my nickname was Fat Frog. That's what they call it. It's so mean, right? It was so mean. And so I had a really rough time, in Virginia. But it got worse. Because one day I was watching TV and I was watching a commercial, and Good Humor ice cream, yes, Good Humor ice cream existed back then. They had this really wonderful idea for a new ice cream. And guess what that new ice cream was? Fat Frog ice cream. It was a green vanilla ice cream with M&M eyes, right? And they had this jingle about a fat frog and it's hopping around everywhere. And I was watching that at home, and I was like, my jaw dropped. I'm like, oh no, I have to go to school tomorrow. I was like, hopefully no one saw the commercial. I walk into school. It was almost like out of a movie. The door opened up in the school. And literally, it felt like kids were lined up, and they were all singing the jingle. Fat Frog. It was. Why are you laughing? It was really painful. It was really painful. Not only that, but I went through a lot of things when I was in Virginia, and I'll be honest with you, okay? But during that time, between age 5 to about 8 years old. There were kids in the neighborhood, and I was actually molested by some older teenagers. And there was a group of other kids. I'm kind of thankful in a sense that I wasn't like any more than molested, because other kids had worse things happen. And it wasn't even just one teenager, it was another. It was just, I don't know why, it was just so much going on. A lot of people in my generation can have the same testimony. And me too. You probably didn't know that about me. So it was a really, really broken, difficult time when I was there. I remember this was the worst, okay? The worst of all that my experience there was the school gym class, okay? The gym class was the worst, okay? Because what do they do in gym class? They have physical education class, and then every year or semester, what do they have? Physical fitness test, right? And here I am, I'm dreading that test, right? I knew it was coming around, and they do a bunch of stuff, right? You gotta run around the track, and they time you, see how fast you go. How fast you go, I'm not gonna make it around that track. So, the kids, they blow the whistle and you start and everyone's running. It's so easy for them. I'm just like, I'm just like dying, I barely make it like 50 yards, and then I collapse on the track, and then I realized, it's a little easier to roll for me. So I rolled like for, quarter mile more, No, it's true, okay? This is a true story. I had to somehow make it, right? But they also had other exams. Joy, you're laughing too much. All right? They had other exams, right? Another one was like, you take, one at a time. You have to jump up to a monkey bar, and you have to grab onto it, and they time you how long you could hold onto the bar, okay? yeah, right. Okay, so I see all these other kids going in front of me. They're all like skinny, and they jump up, they grab it. They're like grabbing one arm, picking their nose, and it's like so easy for them. And I'm sitting on the line like, please God, please, no, 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 right? And it was my turn. All right, let me try it. Okay, so I go. I reach up for it. I can't. I was short too, so I couldn't grab it. So the gym teacher comes. Helps me, right? Tries to pick me up, but he can't pick me up. He calls the other gym teacher from across the yard. Hey, come here, help me. And the other gym teacher helped me. So I grab the bar, and they start the timer. Click. I already felt. Not only that, but it was like that the monkey bars were kind of on a hill, so I started rolling down the hill. That's how it was. Yeah. So it was really tough, But you know what? I share that story because I still think about it today. I really do. Even though I'm much older, I think about, some of the brokenness I've been through, especially during that time period. But I remember when I first accepted God in my life and I learned about the gospel, I learned about what Jesus did to me. I still remember holding on to that monkey bar. I could barely hold on for not even a second. But then the realization that, Jesus Christ hung on that cross for hours for me, still stays in my heart today, And for me to know the depths of my brokenness, and the height of God's wonderful grace for me, right, is something that I'll never forget, And so I think it's okay to be broken sometimes. I know it's crazy. How many pastors tell you to go to a Keshi concert or something like that? But you know what? It's okay. Because God pursued me when I was broken, And because I was broken, I was able to see and understand that there's a God who knows me, sees me, and he pursued me. And I'm telling you, this is all over the Bible. If you've seen Christianity or the Bible as just some kind of, like a sinner's prayer or something, you're wrong. It's so much more than that. The Bible talks about over and over again how God knows you, sees you, pursues you, and wants to have a relationship with you. I want to quickly show this to you. If don't get, only excited about, my poor childhood, okay? But these scriptures are awesome. I want you to look at them, okay? So first, we have the prodigal son, right? The story that we just read, right? Was read to us. Thank you very much. The prodigal son. So basically, let me just summarize it for you really quickly, right? Jesus told this parable about parable to Pharisees and sinners there about a father with two young sons, right? And then one of the young sons goes to the father and say, "Father, I want you to give me my half of the inheritance." And you know what that meant during that time? That meant, right? In that culture, if you said that to your father, it's like saying, "Father, I want you to die right now." Okay? I want to kill you, basically. I want you to die, and I want you to give me my half of the money that's due me. That's like what he was saying. And he did. But you know what the father did? He said, okay. And so the son took that money and he went and he lived lavishly, partying and spending on everything that he wanted. And then he ran out of money. Right? And it says that he was so poor and so broken that he was eating pigs. Food that the pigs were eating. Okay? And until he realized, you know what? It was so much better, when I was in my father's house. So what did he do? He was thinking to himself, oh, I hope that my father can take, even if he doesn't take me back because I told him to die, that if he would just let me live in the barn, it's so much better than what I'm, doing right now. So he starts heading home. But then how does this story go? The father, he was not only, do you know that the father accepted, but you know what it says? Let's read it, okay? Luke 15:20, it's only one verse. But while he was still a long way, notice what it says, okay, this is really important. His father what? Saw him. Saw him. This word in the original Greek is seeing intently. It's not just like, oh, I see you. It's like he was waiting for him. He was hoping he would come over the horizon one day. He was waiting for it. That's the seeing that you see here. Not only that, but it says it was filled with compassion for him. You see that? You know what that is? Not only sees, but he knew. He knew his son's heart at that moment. It's to have a move. He was moved with deep compassion is what it means in the original language. What it means is it's a gut-wrenching kind of love and knowing and compassion. You understand? That's what the father was feeling, it says here. Right? And not only that, but it says here, right? The father knew his son. He saw his son. But what did it say? What does it say here? He ran to his son. He pursued his son. He didn't just sit there, oh, wait till he gets home. No, he pursued him. Why? Because that's his son. And he was his father. And his relationship with him meant more than anything. Okay? But it's all over the Bible. Let me give you another one, okay? All right? In Luke chapter 7, there's a story of the widow of Nain. Jesus is entering the town of Nain. I'm just going to summarize real quick, okay, for you guys. He's going into this town with his disciples and a large crowd, and everyone is crying, okay? Because there's a funeral going on. There's a widow, and she lost her, one and only son, okay? And so she's like crying. Everyone's feeling so terrible for her. Not only that, but in that culture, once again, losing your oldest son was like losing, your last source of provision and protection, and like your son's supposed to take care of her, like Adrian's gonna do for me, okay? So she lost that, right? Just kidding. She lost that, not really, but she lost that. Okay, let me get back to it, right? And you know what it says? In Luke chapter 7, verse 13 to 15, Jesus approaches her and her son. It says, again, do you see these words here? Look, when the Lord saw her, it's the same word as in the prodigal son and what the father did. It says the Lord saw her in the same way as the father did, intently, waiting, lovingly, okay? Not only that, but it says here, his heart went out to her. It's that same compassion in the other story. Same words. Moved with deep compassion, a gut-wrenching love. And not only that, he went and he touched the beer. Okay, not beer, okay? Not this beer. Beer is where they put the dead body on top. A platform where they put the dead body on top. And he went and he pursued the son and touched the son. Same thing. One other, okay? And then that's it, okay? One other. Do you know the story of the Good Samaritan? Right? That's in the Bible as well. A religious expert, a religious expert of the law, a lawyer, approached Jesus and was trying to trick him with the question. So this religious expert asked Jesus, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And you know what Jesus answered? Jesus knew that this man was kind of like tricking him. But you know what Jesus' answer was? It says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, right? And your neighbor as yourself. But wanting to justify himself, the religious expert asked him, well, Jesus, then who is my neighbor? And then Jesus gave him this story of the Samaritan, right? And in that story, it's very simple. There was a man. He had been robbed, beaten, right? He'd been messed up. But then, as he's lying there in the street, a priest comes over, like a pastor. A pastor comes over, and he sees him, but he's like, no, unclean, or like, I'm not going to deal with this. He walks across the street and ignores the person. And then a Levite comes along, and a Levite was someone who was like, he was born into the family of priests, so kind of like some of you guys who are like, born into church. You've been going to church your whole life, maybe. He sees the man lying there in the street, helpless. What does he do? He ignores him, and he goes across the street and doesn't do anything. But then the Good Samaritan comes, right? The Good Samaritan comes, and what does he do? He bandages the wound of the man, puts the man on his donkey, brings him to an inn, pays for his care, and then with the promise to return and cover any extra costs. He goes there, he actually pursued this man and did all these things for him, right? And let's read it. Luke 10. Again, brothers and sisters, it's the same words. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came there where the man was. And when he saw him, the same kind of seeing as the father of the prodigal. Right? He saw him. And again, it says here, took pity on him. Again, that same gut-wrenching love as he identified with the pain of this person, right? And what did he do? It says here again, and went to him, pursued him. Do you see that, guys? In our brokenness, the amazing grace of God, he comes to us. He knows you more than you know yourself. He sees your pain, and he pursues you. That is what it means to have a relationship with God. That's the kind of God we have. That we can have a relationship with him. Let me share this story with you. And to close, okay? It's kind of like this. Why is there brokenness in the world? Why did you guys go through stuff and maybe you're complaining to God, like things have happened in your life? But you know what? Like I said, like the Keshi concert, sometimes you just got to realize that, you know what, maybe your brokenness is helping you to see the amazing grace of God. You know, when I was in Ukraine, there are many places we went to. This, I know many things that changed my life. This story changed my life. While I was in the Ukraine, and this is the last story, don't worry, we're almost done. When I was in the Ukraine, we also went to Chernobyl. Do you guys know about Chernobyl? Yeah. Chernobyl, in history, was a nuclear plant that Ukraine had. They were building nuclear bombs. But what happened was there was a leak. Something went wrong. And the power plant leaked all the radiation. And you know, radiation is really harmful. It causes, disformity, and, a lot of very, very crazy things. And so even to this day, when we went, they told us in the Ukraine not to sit on the grass, just in case. Because there's still, radiation contamination all over the place, especially near Chernobyl. Even to this day, they have it blocked off, certain areas, because the radiation still may affect people. So we actually got to go to Chernobyl. It was pretty cool. But then we traveled to Chernobyl, and it was one of our, well, not last, but one of our most memorable stops, because we went to a children's hospital in Chernobyl. And it was the first time that really anybody outside of the country ever came to this children's hospital. We were like the first. So it was pretty neat. And so our mission team, we went there, and but there was a problem. And if you've ever been on missions, or if you're gonna ever go on missions, I highly recommend that you do. I've had wonderful experiences, and so have you. But always a mission trip, there always is at some point, like the enemy tries to ruin your team. Always. So you have like some kind of conflict with each other and stuff like that. And for us, it was really deep, and it was bad at that point as we were traveling to Chernobyl. And so, we were all kind of like we weren't even like talking to each other. It was so bad. After all these wonderful things we were doing for God, right? For this to happen. And not only that, but we were all against like the mission's leader. Like, he made a lot of bad decisions. And so we kind of didn't respect his leadership. And he wasn't like the most capable of leaders and stuff. So there was a lot of conflict, right? Well, we went to the hospital, and we went to a side room before we went in front of the children and stuff like that, and we were preparing, last minute, whatever we need to sing praises and the crafts and the things that we were gonna do for them, but it just didn't feel right. And I was leading worship at that time, and I just said, guys, we gotta pray. We can't go out there, with the state of our team like this. And so we prayed, and it was like really difficult to pray because there was so much negative thoughts and stuff like that. But we prayed, and we went out, and we're like, kind of like, we didn't want to go out there. But when we got there, we saw like like 100, 150 people there. Children, nurses, parents, and they're all sitting down waiting for us. And we give our little presentation, it was kind of half-hearted, right? And then it was time for and it was the mission leader's turn to give a message. And we're like, oh no, he's gonna give one of those silly messages again, And he came up and he started to give a message. It was really such a simple little message too. It was like, children, like here's a toothbrush. If you don't brush your teeth, what happens to your teeth? They rot, right? Right? Yeah, and that's not good. And that's why you need a toothbrush and toothpaste, and you have to brush your teeth, right? And he said, Jesus is like this toothbrush. How many of you want Jesus to come, Jesus to come and clean your teeth? And as the translator was translating it, she was like, she translated it and said, how many of you would like to receive this toothbrush? Raise your hands. Before she could even finish a sentence, all 150 people, children, nurses, parents, everyone, all at once, every single person there. We're all like, that never happened to the mission leader whenever he spoke. We're like, whoa. And so we got a little bit excited. We're like, oh, hey, we got to go pray for these kids. So I took down my guitar, and I go, and I see this child in the back corner, and I decided, I'm going to go over there. And I go, and I grab this child's hand, and I start to pray for him. And then for some reason, the room changed. Like, the prayer was so powerful. Like, they're all like crying out to God. Everyone was praying. The missions team was praying. They're crying. The nurses were crying. The parents were crying. The children were crying. And it was like just this prayer, this powerful prayer going on, And I was like, wow, And so I started to pray hard. But then, all of a sudden, what happened was, as I was praying for this child, something happened. Something weird happened. He started to squeeze my hand as I was praying for him. But he didn't squeeze my hand the way I think he really should squeeze my hand. His hand turned backwards, and he was squeezing my hand, like both hands backwards. I looked, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was like really started to pray like really loud, right? Like I was like blood rushed to my head, and we're right. And then I look up at the kid. He's looking straight at me, and he has these like weird colored eyes, and it was cross-eyed, looking straight at me. I was like, oh! And I started praying even like more. And then I realized, and then my missions team, they realized as they were praying. We opened our eyes, and we saw the kids. Before we were too preoccupied with what we were doing. We saw the kids, and I'm telling you guys, I don't know if you've seen documentaries or heard people's testimony. What I saw there was unbelievable. Because of radiation poisoning, right? There's a lot of birth defects that occurred. And so that hospital, we didn't realize it was a hospital for children who had parents who were infected by the Chernobyl radiation leak. And these children, like when their eyes finally opened, there was deformity you wouldn't believe. So many of the kids, they had like alien heads, like their brains and their heads were larger than their skull. Many of the kids had multiple fingers coming out of their hands, growth in areas that you wouldn't believe. They look like monsters. They literally did. We all looked at each other and we could not believe what we were seeing. But we prayed for them so much. It was such a powerful moment. Every single one of those children accepted Christ that day. Without hesitation. As soon as they heard the gospel, And I still remember that day because I really believe that God pursued those children. They sent us from New York City, all over the U.S. They sent us to go as soon as the communism was over that country. We went to that place, and these children were ready, and they all accepted Christ that day. We prayed for hours with them, cried hours with them. And you know what? Afterwards, I don't think I've ever seen more beautiful children in my life. Really. They were so beautiful. All the parents were crying. All the nurses were crying. It was a life-changing moment for me because really I realized this is what it's about. You see, God knows our brokenness more than anyone else will ever know. God sees us. And for some of us, we might be pretty good-looking people, normal-looking people, but you know what? If you could see deep inside your soul, you're probably more, and myself, more deformed than those kids because of sin. Broken because of sin. And just like Keshi talks about all the time, that brokenness is real. It's real. But we have a God that knows us, sees us, pursues us. And you know what? Why is there brokenness in your life? It's so that, I'd much rather be one of those kids to realize my depravity so that I could understand an amazing God that pursues me rather than live this life with all the riches and all the things that, we want in this life. God knows, sees, and pursues you. What we believe is a relationship. Read the Psalms. Read the Bible. It's all about a God that wants to have that kind of relationship with you and me. We're not a religion, And for my entire life, I've always had a God with me. I don't see him with my eyes, but I know there's a God just like the Good Samaritan, like the Father, like Jesus who saw that widow with me every single day. Right? I know some of you are really broken. I know some things have happened to you. Did you even know that I was molested as a child? Maybe you have gone through things in your life, and you might complain to God. That's okay. But he knows you, sees you, and he reaches out to you. And you know what? Just like those children, we are all going to get new bodies, beautiful bodies one day. The suffering we have in this life, the molestation, whatever, right? Nothing compared to what we are going to have forever with our God in heaven forever. Amen? Amen. I know I went a little long today, but I really wanted to share all this with you in this very important matter. Okay? Have a relationship with God. Can we close our eyes? Maybe Dan, you could play something. I don't want to miss this moment. Just play something, anything, it's fine. I just want to ask you if you maybe didn't see God in this way. Maybe you saw yourself more like one of those children, like complaining and broken and like, God, why this? I can't believe in you when this has happened in my life. I can't give up my whole life to you. I see all this pain in the world and brokenness. How can I, turn to you? Well, that's the message of love, the gut-wrenching passion that God has for you. And that's the reason why Jesus Christ died on the cross, so that we could regain everything that we lost. And that's available to you and me. If you've never made that decision in your life, I'm not going to ask you to make that decision right now and say a prayer. I just want you to go home with that. And I want you to know that, God walks with you. And maybe if you never made that decision and say, God, I believe you now. I want to follow you now. Do that by your bedside or something. But I want every single one of us to know this very special God who loves you with a gut-wrenching love that wants to and will prove his eternal love for you. I hope you will accept it from the God that loves you so much. Father God, thank you for this time together. I just pray, Lord, that we will see that the reason why grace is so amazing is not because we get to go to heaven or something like that. This grace is so amazing because you pursue us. Someone like me. And you love me. And you love us. We thank you for this amazing grace. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right. Thanks, guys. Let us close in the Lord's Prayer, and then I will close in the benediction. Our Father in heaven,
hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
may the Lord bless you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you